Hello and welcome back to the collapse experiment, where we're going to get in trouble today because I have several recent articles about the latest news on certain medical procedures that people are trying to mandate a while ago. I don't know what the safe words are anymore. I don't know. YouTube has become like this weird, kinky, red sex room of passwords that you if you say certain things, the pleasure stops, if you will. So I don't know what I can and can't mumble out anymore, and so I'm just going to wing it, if you will. I'm going to start out with the latest news. This is kind of a recap as to what we already know about Fauci's emails and things that he requested other people do when it comes to information on certain topics. New World Health Organization chief scientist made crucial change to paper claiming the virus didn't come from a lab. Yeah, the new chief scientist. It's amazing. He got a promotion. Huh. Don't know how that happened. So this is through the Epoch Times. You can find this at thecollapseexperiment.com. And if you like that content and this content here, please like and subscribe, share with your friends. Don't put it on Facebook because you'll probably get your account suspended. Yeah. The WHO's new chief scientist made a crucial change to an influential 2020 paper that claimed it was improbable that a virus came from a lab, a newly disclosed email shows. So, yes, this is recapping some of the information that we've already covered here, but this leads into a few other stories that are going to be popping up here in just a few minutes. Jeremy Farrar, the chief scientist who was credited in one message with helping guide, if you want to call it that, the paper about the origin of the virus, according to one email released by the U.S. House Select Subcommittee on the virus pandemic on March 5th. Thanks for shepherding this paper. Rumors of bioweaponeering are now circulating in China. Dr. Ian Lipkin and Columbia University professor wrote to Farrar in the message. Yes, I know, and in the US. So why so keen to get out ASAP? I will push nature. Farrar responded. I will push nature because, the science can just be leaned one way or another, depending on the outcome that you want, I guess, because that's how science works, not propaganda. In the early 2020 paper, Lipkin and four co-authors claimed it is improbable that the virus emerged through laboratory manipulation of a related virus. The virus that causes that one. A draft of the manuscript published by Nature included a different word the House panel found. Sorry, a micromanage micro-edit. But would you be willing to change one sentence? Farrar wrote to Christine Anderson, who co-authored the paper, in an email just one day before the publication. Wow, it must be an online magazine, because one day before publication, I mean, is this before or after print? Publication, I'm guessing that's going to the printer, not likely the newsstands. Does anybody buy these things anymore? Farrar asked to insert improbable in place of unlikely, the email showed. Sure, Anderson responded. I can do that. That's cool. The paper also stated that the virus is not a laboratory construct. There's a lot of scientists out there that call BS on that one, and that the authors do not believe that any type of laboratory-based scenario is plausible. What? That's just crazy. This evidence suggests that Dr. Farrar was more involved in the drafting and publication of proximal origin than previously known and possibly should have been credited or acknowledged for his involvement, the panel said. The one time you don't want some credit for some work that you do. Interesting. Or did he get credit? I mean, the guy it's 2023. He's now the chief scientist for the WHO. Just pointing that out. As for a comment from Farrar, the WHO, who told Epoch Times via email, he hasn't yet started his new position. Yeah, well, when you're getting bent over, it's hard to get up. The British scientist was, at the time of the messages, at the helm of the Wellcome Trust, which controls millions of dollars in funding for research in the UK. Wow, isn't it amazing how these people that are heads of millions of dollars of funds seem to be part of this whole, conspiracy. It's a conspiracy. They all conspired. They're all committing illegal acts and they conspired together. This is a conspiracy. The WHO announced on December 13th, 2022, that Farrar would be the next new chief scientist and that he would start in the second quarter of 2023. Wellcome, which didn't respond to a request for comment, has stated that Farrar was due to leave in 2023. Yeah, okay. So it appears there's maybe not. Nope, not really. I mean, there is a link to the Epoch Times article, but good luck if you don't have a subscription. If you'd like to contribute to me getting a subscription, yada, 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 please like and subscribe. So, yeah, that's a recap on that issue. And let's see here. Oh, yeah, Jim Jordan. So this is via, I guess this is just straight up Zero Hedge. Fauci's lies exposed. Jim Jordan goes ballistic over scientist lab leak flip flop. Isn't that funny? Representative Jim Jordan was on fire Wednesday. Well, he's from Ohio, so hopefully this isn't literal. Was on fire Wednesday during the first Virus Select Subcommittee investigating the origins of the virus, where former CDC Director Dr. Robert Redfield said he was sidelined from internal debates over the origins of the virus. Former CDC Director was sidelined. How does that happen? And that former White House chief medical advisor, Dr. Anthony Fauci, didn't appreciate Redfield's support of the theory that it emerged from a lab. The head of the CDC was told what the science was. Weird. This was a proprietary decision that there was no point of view that we're going to put out, that there's one point of view that we're going to put out there, and anyone who doesn't agree with it is going to be sidelined, said Redfield. And as I say, I was only the CDC director, and I was only the CDC director, and I was sidelined. Wow. Yeah. Oh, this guy looks like, wow, he's very Amish looking, if you know what I mean. The 71-year-old Redfield told Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer that his support for the lab leak theory likely prompted his exclusion. Wow, you kicked out the head of the CDC. Good job, because that's science. I think I made it clear in January of 2020 to all of them why we had to aggressively pursue this, he said, and I let them know as a virologist. So this guy is an actual expert in this field. And he was told no. Let it know, virologist, that didn't see that this was anything like SARS or MERS, and they knew that was how I was thinking, because they knew it themselves. Let's be honest here. This is why the guy was sidelined. Jordan then focused the conversation on two top Fauci advisors, Kristen Anderson, and I'm not even going to add doctor on this because these people I don't have any respect for their degrees because they're not following the science, if you will. And Robert Gary, who suddenly changed their stance on lab leak theory. The two notably emailed Fauci on January 31st, 2020, where they suggested that anomalies in the virus pointed to a non natural origin. Yeah, this came up several times, especially on channels that were on YouTube during that time. According to Anderson, the virus had unusual features that potentially look engineered. Spike protein much? I'm not a scientist, but I do know from the little bit that I read that doesn't usually happen on a corona thing. Yeah. Or the common cold. The common cold doesn't usually have that aspect to it. All find the genome inconsistent with expectations from evolutionary theory. Huh. It's almost like it didn't evolve that way. So 3 days after they say it came from a lab, they changed their position, and the only intervening event was a conference call with Anthony Fauci and Dr. Collins. Again, a call that Dr. Redfield, CDC director at that time, was not allowed to be on. You excluded the head of the Center for Disease Control. Who the bleep is running this bleep show? I'm sorry, but and we're supposed to follow all the recommendations that these morons have. And then 3 months later, Shazam, they get $9 million from Dr. Fauci. Why isn't that something? 3 months later, the people who are on that call get $9 million from Dr. Fauci. It's almost like he paid for a certain outcome of a certain paper to discredit anything coming from a lab that Dr. Fauci funded over in China. Weird. There are 9 million reasons why two top scientists changed their stance on the lab leak theory. This is from the Vigilant Fox on Twitter. So 3 days after they say it came from a lab, they changed their position, and the only intervening event was a conference call with Dr. Fauci and Dr. Collins. Yeah. Meanwhile, lawyers have claimed that statements by Fauci and under oath aren't credible due to contradicting event. Or contradicting evidence. That's why it didn't sound right. Yeah, okay. So lawyers claim statements by Fauci under oath aren't credible due to contradicting evidence. So he committed perjury. I'm hearing a lot of crimes here. I'm not seeing anybody being prosecuted. As the Epoch Time notes, that concludes the claim that Fauci didn't think he had ever met with Dr. Ralph Baric, an American virologist who helped perform risky research on bat viruses in China. I know who he is. I doubt I've ever met him, Fauci said during a late 2022 deposition. I'm just going to say that was the English variation of that word, deposition. The first time he answered questions under oath since the pandemic began. Fauci acknowledged the U.S. National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, which he headed until around the new year, providing funding for Baric. Weird, you're providing funding to somebody you never met. I highly doubt that. But you don't remember ever meeting him in person, he was asked. I don't recall. I could have met him. I run into several thousands of scientists that we refer to, but I don't recall certainly having a relation. Nobody asked if you had sex with him, Fauci, okay? I don't recall having a relationship with him. Really? A relationship? That's not what you were asked. So thanks for not answering the question in a honest way, you douchebag. But Fauci's official calendar lists a one-on-one meeting Weird. It's just a one-on-one meeting. How would you? I meet so many people. I don't remember them when it's only the two of us. With Barrick on February 11th, 2020, and a newly revealed message from a professor who recounted Barrick's account of the meeting, showing they talked about man-made virus combinations. I talked to Ralph for a long time last night. He sounds beat. Matt Freeman, a University of Maryland professor, wrote on February 18th, 2020. He said he had sat in Fauci's office talking about the outbreak and chimeras. a, a chimera is a combination of viruses. Huh. It almost sounds like they knew what they were dealing with. The materials unearthed from Freedom of Information Act requests from the nonprofits OpenTheBooks.com, Judicial Watch, and U.S. Right to Know, and other evidence, including a 2020 email of talking points for Fauci that mentioned Barrick being on our team, show that Dr. Fauci's testimony on his point was not credible. The attorneys general of Missouri and Louisiana told a federal court in the new filing. Fauci also claimed that he was not 100% certain of the name of Dr. Xi Zhengli. Zengli? Zhengli. I don't know. That is not a spelling I usually see in Chinese, but okay. Known for her experiments on bat viruses in China. I get sometimes confused with Asian names, Fauci testified. Racist! You're racist. Yeah, Dr. Xi Zhengli, a so-called Batwoman, the so-called Batwoman, is world-renowned as the researcher who may have caused the outbreak, and has been so since the beginning of the outbreak. And the name Xi is included in the title of the article that Dr. Fauci forwarded to Dr. Hugh Auchincloss after midnight on February 1st, 2020. Dr. Fauci's testimony is not credible at this point, Dr. Andrew Bailey and Jeff Landry, the attorney generals, wrote. Yeah, and oh my God, it just goes on and on. Dr. Fauci's testimony about lack of recall is not credible. Dr. Fauci is just not credible. Let's put it that way. They also noted that when Fauci did characterize the call, he said that it was involved in a good faith discussion back and forth between people who knew each other, and that the general feeling, the feeling among the participants in the call is that they wanted to get down to the truth and not wild speculations about things. That's not how that works. That's not science. Mr. Science, that's not science. After the call, a number of participants wrote papers decrying the theory that the virus started in a lab. Yeah, interesting. So you can read more about that at thecollapseexperiment.com. Yeah. And guess what? It goes on from there. So yeah, the virus, not deadly enough to justify a risk of fast-track vaccines, Chris Whitty told UK government. So now we're going over into the UK to where they had very similar stuff happening. And this is from dailyskeptic.org. The virus was not dangerous enough to justify cutting short trials on said products, as the product had to be very safe. Not safe and effective, not all the garbage that they said after that, but very safe. Chris Whitey advised the government in the early weeks of the outbreak it has emerged. Writing on WhatsApp on February 29th, 2020, the chief medical officer told government figures for a disease with a low mortality, a product has to be very safe, so the safety studies can't be shortcut. So important for the long run. It's almost like this guy actually took his job seriously and he just wasn't listened to. Funny how that happens. The estimated 1% turnout to be an estimate, as the fatality rate in Europe and the Americas was found to be zero point 0.3 to 0.4%. Chief scientist Patrick Vallance agreed with the advice and wrote that existing drugs should be relied on instead. I wonder what those could have been. Agree existing drugs best thing to try for this outbreak. Accelerate product testing where we have good candidates for future and prepare for manufacturing capacity for longer term. So they were looking at alternative measures and then implementing something as long as it was safe. It's almost like they thought this through, but just weren't listened to. It has not been reported what led to this approach being changed. But the advice was given before a pandemic had been declared or any country except China had imposed a lockdown. Public opinion, the government responses around the world shifted considerably after this point. We gonna make some money. Yeah, that's what it comes down to. The Telegraph has published an article looking at what the lockdown files WhatsApp messages show about how the government came to impose lockdown on March 23rd as it came under pressure during March to do so. Came under pressure from who and why? On March 2nd, Patrick Vallance said that he and uh, Whitey, I'm going with Whitty, estimated that the chance of a responsible worst case scenario was 1 in 5. I mean, like, I'm not a gambling person, but I mean, 1 in 5, worst case scenario. For percentage probability, reasonable worst case scenario, we don't have a calculated figure and can't give one on the data we have. But Chris and I both think that looking at Wuhan so far, the uh, reasonable worst case scenario is relatively low probability, say 1 in 5 chance, but that is an impression, not a calculation. So even they didn't have enough data to have the science as to how this was going to turn out. On March 5th, a poll showed the public were still happy with the government's calm approach. And then you done messed that up, didn't you? However, this was probably the last time that was true, as images from Italy where hospitals were overwhelmed by gasping victims and distraught doctors were having to turn away the patients. Were beamed into living rooms over the following days. The panic buying began as the sense of doom grew. On March 8th, France banned large gatherings as Italy locked down the entire north of the country, and the government figures began to feel the pressure to do more. Yeah, Italy, that was kind of a weird thing that happened over there, but instead of learning from the experience, they decided to do other things. By March 8th, Boris Johnson's chief advisor, Dominic Cummings, was stressing how difficult it was to continue to hold the liberal line and not very subtly implying he agreed with the critics. On March 12th and 13th, Patrick Vallance and other government figures did one last media round arguing for sticking with calm, liberal response that would lead to herd immunity. Which is funny because that's basically what happened with everywhere else that didn't follow the other suggestion. Let's see here. But it was no longer well received by the media or much of the public. Are you sure about that? This is the UK. Perhaps they just enjoyed being oppressed. I don't know. In line with that plan, contact tracing was stopped around March 15th as the country moved from containment to mitigation. But behind the scenes, this change was opposed, and the idea that we should be ramping up tests and contact tracing for indefinite use became a new orthodoxy. Keep on the great work. Thank you, Dance Dad Piper. Neither I nor Prime Minister understand We need to explain and ramp up as fast as humanly possible. On the evening of March 16th, man, this is the day Neil Ferguson's Report 9 projecting over 500,000 deaths without severe suppression measures was published. Boris Johnson told the nation that without drastic action, the virus would spiral out of control. Yeah, kind of like that peace deal that Johnson axed, right? Yeah. These modulars had a track record of drastically exaggerating threats, but this seemed not to matter as Carl Hennigan and Tom Jefferson wrote in an exonerating piece in the Mail this morning. Faith was replaced in excerpts who, in the past two decades, wrongly predicted 136,000 UK deaths from new variant, blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, this all started out with we need to try these drugs. And then it quickly went over to buy some stock because we're going to sell this crap. Yeah, these people who obviously took their job seriously and were trying to do the right thing were completely ignored, which is how this crap works. I don't ask me. I've seen it in just about every workplace that I've ever been in. If you don't know how to do your job, you get promoted. Okay, and we have one more, I believe. Yeah, and this one is actually, well, it is the Twitter files. So this does keep go in with how certain things were suppressed in this country through social media and how that happened. Dems blast threat of so-called journalists as Taibbi Schellenberger exposed state-sponsored thought policing. Yeah. So interesting. This is through Zero Hedge, and you can find that at thecollapseexperiment.com. Well, that escalated quickly, as one might expect. The judiciary hearing on the weaponization of federal agencies, including Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberger, as witnessed, was full of fireworks, facts, and ad hominem fiction. Yeah. Out of the gate, ranking member Democrat Stacey Plaskett labeled the two so-called journalists as dangerous and a threat to former Twitter employees. Get a new job. Former Twitter, that's all they are to you, is just former Twitter employees. They're not anything else, huh? She claimed the Republicans brought two of Elon Musk's public scribes in to release cherry-picked, out-of-context emails and screenshots designed to promote his chosen narrative, Elon Musk's chosen narrative, that is now being parroted by the Republicans for political gain. Cherry-picking, huh? That's interesting. Haven't seen that on other sides ever. I'm not exaggerating when I say you have called two witnesses who pose a direct threat to people who oppose them. Oh no, because Taibbi, he's got a record of writing stuff. A direct threat. Do you know what a threat is, lady? Like, I know that you cowered under your desk or whatever on J6, but do you actually know what a threat is to anyone or anything? Because I don't think you've ever experienced that. Chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Republican Jim Jordan of Ohio, had a simple response to her accusations. It's crazy what you are saying, what you were just saying. You don't want people to see what happened, Jordan continued. The full video transparency, you don't want that. You don't want two journalists who have been named personally by the Biden administration, the FTC, in a letter. They say they're here to help and tell their story. And frankly, I think they're brave individuals for being willing to come after being named in a letter from the Biden FTC. Yeah, these journalists, like legit journalists who are protected under the First Amendment, are being attacked. Taibbi snapped back. And this is Taibbi here. I'm not a so-called journalist. I've won the National Magazine Award, the IF Stone Award for Independent Journalism, and I've written 10 books. How you like them apples? As Glenn Greenwald chimed in from Twitter, to Democrats, journalist means one who mindlessly and loyally endorses DNC talking points. Exactly. Like propaganda is what that's usually called or referred to. Yeah, that's who they label as journalists. Unshaken, Matt Taibbi continued when he was allowed to respond, laid out what he and Schellenberger had found in their research of the Twitter files. The original promise of the internet was that it might democratize the exchange of information globally. I seem to remember saying something very similar myself recently. A free internet would overwhelm all attempts to control information flow, its very existence a threat to anti-democratic forms of government everywhere. Huh. And I'm not seeing anything wrong that he said there. What we found in the files was a sweeping effort to reverse that promise and use machine learning and other tools to turn the internet into an instrument of censorship and social control. Unfortunately, our own government appears to be playing a lead role. So-called journalist, huh? Taibbi pointedly added that effectively news media became an arm of state-sponsored thought policing system. Yeah, that's not possible. It's not possible to instantly arrive at truth. It is, however, becoming technologically possible to instantly define and enforce a political consensus online, which I believe is what we are looking at. Remember how Parler informed the FBI of like possible things happening on J6, and then the FBI not only failed to report and spread that information, but I think Parler was nothing happened to Parler. It's fine. It's fine. Uh, Democrats' only response to Taibbi and Schellenberger's facts was to get personal. Oh, let's see how personal it got. Glenn Greenwald, Dems are really dredging up the bottom of the barrel to attack Taibbi and the Twitter files. Remember when maligning journalists was a free press assault? Remember DWS? She was forced to quit as a DNC chief because WikiLeaks proved she cheated for Hillary. Yeah, it's funny. Where's WikiLeaks these days? Uh, Representative Wasserman Schultz gets annoyed with Taibbi after he refuses to say he's profiting off the Twitter files. Has anybody been able to figure out how to actually monetize Twitter? And was he paid to? I'm pretty sure he's just acting as a journalist. Oh boy. The full hearing can be viewed below, so there is a link if you want to check out this article and see the hearing for yourself. It is available. As we detailed earlier, journalists Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberger are testifying before the House Judiciary Select Committee's Select Subcommittee. What the hell is with these titles? The House Judiciary Committee's Select Subcommittee on the weaponization of the federal government today. I really hope they have a shorter name for that. Good Lord. Both journalists are involved in the Twitter files disclosure, in which we learn the government was directly involved in censoring disfavorable speech. That's a weird way of putting it. Disfavorable. Our findings are shocking, says Schellenberger. At his blog, a highly organized network of U.S. government agencies and government contractors has been creating blacklists and pressuring social media companies to censor Americans, often without them knowing it. I'm just going to go on a little rant here. The reason that they're trying to destroy the First Amendment is because after you are not allowed to talk about or discuss or debate or gather or do any of the things that are in that First Amendment, you cannot openly defend the rest of the amendments when they try to take them away from you. That is why they're trying to destroy it. Once you take the first one, everything else is on the chopping block and you can't say shit about it. That's the issue. Ahead of the appearance, Taibbi released his prepared remarks. He also dropped a new and related Twitter Files mega thread on censorship industrial complex, kind of like Ted Kaczynski there, which will be submitted to the congressional record, which, according to Taibbi, contains some surprises. Monitor all tweets coming from Trump's personal account, Biden's personal account. When Twitter Files reports were given access to Twitter internal documents last year, we first focused on the company, which at times acted like a power above government. Wow. But Twitter was more like a partner in government with other tech firms. It held a regular industrial meeting with FBI and DHS, industry meeting, and developed a formal system for receiving thousands of content reports from every corner of the government. HHS, Treasury, can't have people buying gold. Oh no. Treasury, NSA, even local police. Wow. That's kind of mind-blowing there. Emails from the FBI and DHS and other agencies often came with spreadsheets of hundreds of thousands of account names for review. Oh, correction here, hundreds or thousands, not hundreds of thousands, but I mean, the end total could actually be, if they're sending these all the time, hundreds of thousands. But yeah, often these would be deleted soon after. Many were obvious misinformation, like accounts urging people to vote the day after an election. But other official disinfo reports had shakier reasoning. The highlighted Twitter analysis here agrees with the FBI about accounts deemed a proxy of Russian actors. When we saw disinfo list where evidence was even less clear, this list of 378 Iranian state-linked accounts included an Iraq vet once arrested for blogging about the war. Okay. A former Chicago Sun-Times reporter, and Truthout, a site that publishes Noam Chomsky. Yeah, that's dangerous. Noam Chomsky. He's I'm surprised he's still around. You watch any videos he puts on YouTube lately, and the guy looks like he should just be working in a coffin. In some cases, state reports didn't even assert misinformation. Here's a list of YouTube videos is flagged for anti-Ukraine narratives. I wonder if I made that list. But the bulk of censorship requests didn't come from government directly. Asked if Twitter's marketing department could say the company detects misinfo with help of outside experts, a Twitter executive replied, "Not sure we'd describe the FBI, DHS as experts or some NGOs that aren't academic." Wow. And this goes on. And they did this during, the pandemic too. We came to think of this grouping, state agencies like DHS, SBI, or the Global Engagement Center, along with NGOs that aren't academic and unexpectedly aggressive partner, commercial news media as the censorship industry complex. Who's in the censorship complex? Twitter in 2020 helpfully compiled a list for a working group set up in 2020. That's odd. The National Endowment for Democracy, the Atlantic Council, DFR Lab, Hamilton's 68th creator, the Alliance for Security Democracy, blah, blah, blah. Twitter execs weren't sure about Clemens Media Forensics Lab, too chummy with somebody else, and weren't keen on the RAND Corporation, but others were deemed just right. NGOs ideally serve as a check on corporations and the government. Not long ago, most of these institutions viewed themselves that way. Now, Intel officials, researchers, and executives at firms like Twitter are effectively one team or signal group, as it were. Okay, this goes on and on. Yeah, this is insane. They're just showing more and more evidence of Twitter, specifically evidence from the Twitter files as to how this was all orchestrated to censor the public and information. And this was happening in the UK, and this was happening in Canada, and this was happening in Australia, New Zealand. This is a very, very long, detailed article. My understanding was that they were going to investigate to what extent they could grow audiences for Facebook pages using sensational news. I know that there were people who believe the Democrats need to fight fire with fire. She told the New York Times it was absolutely chatter going around the party. Yeah, this is insane. So again, this is a conspiracy. This one right here, this is an actual legitimate conspiracy with corporations and our government to undermine our First Amendment right. Yeah. And again, if you don't have the First Amendment, you can't protect the other amendments. I know that some people will say the Second Amendment is there to protect the First. It can go either way. Let's put it that way. So yeah, this was the last article that I had regarding what is happening with information regarding the virus. And I do have one more. This is I found this to be very interesting considering where this is taking place. Mother sues doctor who allegedly administered a medical procedure to children without consent, and this is through the Epoch Times. A doctor violated the law by administering a product to children without consent, according to a new lawsuit. Dr. Janine Rethy, chief of community pediatrics at MedStar Georgetown University Hospital, is being accused of holding two children in a room until she convinced them to get the jab. Children cannot consent, therefore you can't convince them, because either way, if she had done something else to these children in that room, she'd be in a prison cell right now because they can't consent. The minors are both children of Nantanya McNeil, a Washington resident who brought the suit to the D.C. Superior Court. Miss McNeil's two minor children are held in a room by defendant until she overcame their will and forcibly jabbed them while physically preventing them from consulting with their mother, who is the legal guardian and the only person that can actually consent to this procedure, who is right outside the room. The 9-page suit states the children were also allegedly provided with false and fraudulent information in order to get their purported consent to administer the jab. This stuff pisses me off. Rethy told the kids that they had to get the jab to attend school and that they could not legally decline it, according to the filing. So if they couldn't legally decline it, what were they doing before you convinced them to get it? I'm pretty sure they were legally declining it. The kids gave in when given the false information. Rethi and MedStar did not respond to requests for comment because you're gonna get your asses handed to you. That's why. Annual checkups. McNeil took the children to Rethi for annual physical examinations on September 2nd, 2022. The location was the Georgetown Kids Mobile Medical Clinic, Ronald McDonald Care Mobile. Oh boy, I think McDonald's are going to want to get their name out of that, which is operated by the Georgetown University Hospital as a recreation center. Rethi is director of the mobile clinic. McNeil waited outside with her 1-year-old child while the two other kids went inside, but she called her daughter's cell phone soon after and asked to speak with the doctor. McNeil told Rethi that she was outside and available if needed to answer questions or provide information. Rethi never asked McNeil about any vaccine jabs, according to the suit. The 16-year-old child who attends Dunbar High School went first. Rethi came at me with a needle, the girl was quoted as saying. Rethi asked what it was and was told it was the product. The minor said she did not want the product. Dr. Rethi told KM that the product was required for her to attend school and then gave her the jab, the suit states. The younger child, 14, also reluctantly agreed to accept the product after seeing his sister be injected, although he had repeatedly refused the product previously as well. Wait a minute here. He had repeatedly refused it as well. Repeatedly refused it. So this isn't the first time that they've tried to do this to them. Both children were very upset and angry that they had been coerced into getting it. Rethi also injected the children with a meningococcal vaccine. Whoop-de-doo. Neither Rethi nor clinic staff provided information about the jab to McNeil or the children, and the suit says. Rethi did speak with McNeil, but only told her that she was going to call a prescription for asthma for one of the children. Yeah, they seem to think that your children are their property and that they can do with them as they please. I would put this up there with those people who love children because, again, they can't consent. And from what we're learning about the possible side effects of this product, you just endangered them for the rest of their lives, especially if they develop that certain heart inflammation that tends to happen after this, especially the boy. That's the one that bugs me the most. He's repeatedly refused this product, and he's 14, which is approximately the age that they develop that heart inflammation thing. So yeah, this doctor in the hospital, holy crap! If there ends up being any side effects from this, I would sue them into oblivion. It's in this case, if they're doing stuff like this, it might almost be better if the hospital doesn't even exist anymore for the sake of the community, if this is how they're treating their patients. I'll put it that way. So yeah, this is insane. These doctors are insane. She needs to lose her medical license like ASAP, and this is just nuts right here. It wasn't required. They could refuse it. Holy crap. I actually had a doctor try to do this with me a couple years ago. They were like, well, you need the hepatitis. I forget which one it was, but it was 3 shots. And I was like, I don't want it. I'm not going to get it. I'll let you think about it. And the guy leaves the room. And I'm sitting there for like 15, 20 minutes, and I'm like, and he comes back in and he's like, "So, are you gonna get it?" And I'm like, "No." So then he leaves the room in a huff, and then 5 minutes later, a nurse walks in and she has the shot, and she's like, I'm told to give this to you. And I was like, I said no repeatedly. And she's like, oh, well, the doc, I don't care what he said. I'm not getting it. And eventually it came to the point where I like stormed out of the room and they're like, sir, you need to sign out. And I'm like, I don't need to do shit. I work here, okay? Like, send it to me in an email. But they do this crap all the time. Oh, what do you mean he doesn't want it? Well, he's going to get it. He's going to have it. No, we're not your property. Leave us alone. I think that's going to be like the theme of this channel is like just leave us alone. You don't own us. Like we can say no. We don't have to go along with your bullshit. If you want to do your bullshit where you're at, go ahead. That's fine. That's kind of the whole libertarian attitude, from my understanding, is like you do your garbage over there and we're not going to stop you. But the moment you try to force us to do that, no, it's not happening. Go away. So, anyways, that's about it. That's all the articles I've got on the latest jab information update. I know this is a longer video, but there is a lot of content out there, and that whole Taibbi thing, holy crap. So, anyways, that's about it for me. Keep on typing.